We really appreciate you being here. My name is Brian Donnelly. I'm your host, one of your hosts tonight. I've been trying to get people in Marion County to understand what a data center is.
Why am I talking to you about water? Now I'm going to ask you a question before I go further. How many people here are opposed to AI? I'm not against AI. I think it's necessary in the future and we're going to have it. But the way it is now, it is a disaster. It's the current state of AI that I'm against, not the concept. Because the experts I've talked to who are in the industry have told me it can be fixed if they'll just spend the money. What's the problem? Why are we opposed to AI centers at this point over water? Well, that's really pretty simple, and you'll help me out. The wells that are permitted throughout Central Florida are depleting the aquifer. Now, the St. John's Water Management District will say, oh no, there's less rainfall. No. That's not true. No. Unfortunately for them, I did the research, and from the Florida Climate Center, Florida State University, the data from 1895 through 2025 shows there has been no significant depletion of rainwater in Central Florida. Right. We are about where we've been since 1895. So to say, oh, well, the aquifer is depleted because lack of rainfall, that's just not true. What is the reason? The reason is that the St. John's has done a miserable job since I left of over-permitting wells. There's too much water being drawn out. Everybody here knows about Silver Springs, the jewel of Marion County. Well, when I first started at the St. John's Water Management District, the flow was 530 million gallons a day. What is it now, after drawing all the water out from excessive wells? It's down to 277 million gallons a day. That's a problem. What are we talking about? 250 million gallons a day have been lost to you, to our rivers, to our recreation. And that's not the only spring. Every single spring, you go to Silver Glen, Salt Springs, all the springs in this region are depleted. Well, today I found something very interesting in the news. Governor Greg Abbott, very conservative Republican, who's been in favor of AI centers, what did he say today? Data centers dug their own grave and deserve the backlash they're facing. And we're seeing that all over the country. What happened in Pennsylvania? Moratorium. What happened in New York? Moratorium. There's got to be moratoriums until they fix these data centers so they're not dangerous to us and depleting our aquifers. The aquifer is the lifeblood. I mean, you don't want to wake up one day and not be able to turn on your faucet and get any water out or flush the toilet. Well, wells are going down. People come to me and say, my well, it's dry. Well, wells shouldn't be dry. This is water-rich country, but only because of over-permitting. We can't let that continue, and an AI center, that's bad news. Generally speaking, the smaller the better. But all AI centers that are currently being built use excessive water no matter what they are. We cannot, in Marion County, afford any more depletion of our aquifer. For that alone, we should be standing up and saying, no AI center. I have never found a responsible AI center, and I'm talking to the guy who put in the AI centers in Virginia that are so infamous.
So that it's no. It's
right now,
like
there's
right
nothing
now,
on the
no.
ground that I'm aware of or have even been told of. Yes, ma'am.
How many gallons a day will a data center use?
That's a variable. It depends on the size of the data center and what technology they use. You know, when I first started looking at this, the minimum for a small data center was 100 million gallons a day. 100 million a day. Now, that's changed. They've lessened it somewhat. But until they get it down to they're not taking any more any more water out of our aquifer, I'm voting no.
Right.
And I'm supporting candidates who vote no.
My biggest, I guess I would say, my biggest aha moment was about 2 years ago. And we had a beautiful spring called the Bridal Chamber. It was about 4 feet wide, about 10 or 12 feet long. Actually took out wedding parties to be married on the Bridal Chamber. Okay, so close your eyes for a minute and think about being in a snow globe. That's what it looked like. 2 years ago, while I was working, I looked at it and I'm like, something's kind of weird going. Flows down a little bit. Worked the following weekend, started closing up. A few weeks later, completely gone. It's gone, and it's not coming back. Okay. As Brian was saying, the best thing I'm going to do here today is add a bunch of numbers and just give you, like he said, boots on the ground type of thing. Express to you what I'm seeing. The river is in big trouble. The river is in big trouble. Our aquifer is in huge trouble. So I called around, talked to some well drillers. Currently, we are, on average, 5 feet below normal on our wells. Okay, we are 16 inches below on rainfall. If you go to the park and look at all the watermarks, okay, on the seawall and on the deck, you'll see that we're still, even with all this rain, it's about a foot, foot and a half below where we normally are. We are covered in algae. The statues are covered in algae. I'm going to hand out some pictures here in just a little bit. Our second spring that I'm concerned with was my second aha, was our first magnitude spring, the Blue Grotto. Another one, absolutely gorgeous. You pull in there and you can see all the limestone and shell popping out, all the water forcing it out. No longer there. It's doing nothing. Everything just sitting on the bottom. Florida snowstorm. Nothing. 2 spring heads are doing nothing. So I have a couple pictures here. You know, the first one, these are recent pictures of some of the eelgrass. First one. And the second one. This is last week. Forgive me, I got a really old iPhone. I took this at the statues about a month ago. They are covered in algae, but have dreadlocks. Pretty bad. So, this past winter, until the rain falls, just the last month or so, this is how we were parking our boats in the back. So you can go ahead and pass that around. We had to jump off the boats to get on the dock. That's how low the water was.
Center operations come with a high cost, and that cost is noise pollution. For half a century, U.S. agencies such as the EPA have deemed noise pollution a growing danger to the health and welfare of the nation's population. Noise ranks second only to air pollution as the environmental exposure most harmful to public health. Data center noise pollution impacts surrounding communities and wildlife for miles. Construction of these facilities also contributes to the noise pollution, as it can take years to build due to the size of the facility and its specific design. Urban sprawl, industrial expansion, and deforestation destroy natural carbon absorption reservoirs while removing natural sound barriers. To reduce noise pollution as much as possible, people are wearing earplugs or investing in soundproofing installation. Data center noise is primarily generated by massive 24/7 cooling and power systems, generators, etc. They simply don't shut down, they hum from cooling systems. Rumbling of diesel engines or turbine backup generators and whirring fans can be heard for miles. It is constant. It never stops. This creates a direct assault on the health of residents. Sound behaves differently across frequencies. Our ears and bodies don't perceive all frequencies the same. Very low and high pitches can be damaging to our ears, while sounding relatively quiet to us. The largest generators run closer to 100 dBA. Usually multiple generators run at the same time, increasing the decibel level. dBA, which is called a weighted decibel, is a way of measuring sound that mimics how the human ear perceives it. Low frequencies, dBc, which stands for decibels relative to carrier, this sound travels farther and penetrates buildings more than high frequencies. The low frequency hum can travel for miles. Neither trees nor buildings stop this type of sound. Humans cannot hear these dBc low frequencies because 100 hertz as well as mid-range frequencies. Low frequency data center noise that exceeds just one of the 9 octave bands can make life miserable. A Harvard medical study reported that the negative effects of noise pollution will travel far beyond the perimeter of a data center, causing hearing loss, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, the release of stress hormones, which is scientifically linked to sleep disruption, stress, mental health, and cognition problems, memory impairment, attenuation deficits, childhood learning delays, low birth rates, and even contribute to the growing problem of dementia. Noise pollution has also been linked with an increased mental health concerns such as stress-related disorders and increased annoyance, particularly in sensitive individuals.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Do any companies or corporations or people already have anything on the books that they want to build here in Marion County yet?
I haven't heard anything there.
I know there's one application, there's one landowner who wants to put a AI center on his property, and they're talking to him. I can't tell you more than that, but I can tell you I know there's a landowner that the AI center is talking to about putting an AI center here in Marion County now.
You know, one thing that I think is pretty alarming, because you've got WEC and you have international show jumping here, and you have almost the biggest prize money here in the country, except for down in West Palm Beach. What are these international riders going to do? You think they're going to come here? And what about these people who invest into Marion County and they buy these farms and they've got $1 million horses, not just $1 million horse or $2 million horses. These horses are worth $7, $8, $9, $10 million. Have they ever taken that into consideration?
Obviously not, and what you realize, and I think everybody here does, financial interest in the horse industry directly, we all benefit from the money that comes in that helps us on our property taxes and everything else, our restaurants. Everything in Marion County is affected positively by the horse industry. That's my view. So I surely don't want to do anything to harm them.
Hey guys, so Michael Hill, I'm a land planner. I work for a local government here in Florida, and I'm also a private consultant on the side. So one thing,
Citrus County.
yeah, I'm the one who helped Citrus County on the holder application. We got it denied. It was a great thing. Let me tell you guys something, okay? And Brian, we're going to answer this question in this spiel. If you guys are upset about how the direction of your county is going, listen to what this panel says. Haggle your commissioners. Be respectful. Don't be a Karen, but haggle them. Because, let me explain something, okay? If you as the people on the ground, you guys have all of the power in these plights, okay? Because you guys sway political opinion. Like I said, if your constituents are pissed off and they don't want data centers here, you can go and hit their mailboxes, you can hit their emails and tell them all day you don't want data centers. But, let me explain something. If you do not speak their language in the land development regulations or the comprehensive plan, you are not giving them the legal security to deny these applications. You cannot deny a zoning application or a development for a data center based on emotions. You must bring what the state calls competent substantial evidence, okay? So, when it comes to regulations, again, like I said, the biggest issue in Florida planning is, and I'm gonna say it, is Senate Bill 180. It's an absolute nightmare. I don't know who wrote that, but the guy must have been drunk, whatever. That basically says that you cannot update your land development code if you were in an emergency disaster declaration for a minimum of 2 years after that disaster declaration has ended. Now, here's the caveat that we have discovered. Technically, because data centers are not defined in most of the land development codes in Florida, they're technically prohibited right now. So, it's either you don't update your code and add them into your land development code, or you update them and you institute very strict and harsh guidelines. And from what I've seen, that's not a Senate Bill 180 violation, because with them not existing, they're at the highest level of restriction. So the biggest thing that we're working on is kind of just, the one thing I tell people is this: when you look at data centers, kind of look at your comp plan. Look at what zoning is out there the most and what zoning is out there the least. Generally, industrial is probably the least amount, because again, industrial carries very heavy, intense uses. So one thing that we have been trying to work in our communities in Florida is that we want to, if data centers are going to come to Florida, we want them only in heavy industrial areas and through very carefully crafted criteria. That's the biggest thing you're doing, because I will tell you all this right now. Like in Citrus County, I think industrial zoning is I think 1% or less of the entire land uses for the entire county. So if you institute a criteria where you're only allowed an industrial and you can't be within 5 miles of a school, this, and that, you've practically reduced the availability of land for data centers by 90%. Because if you outright ban them, your county could very well be sued.
Everyone here in Marion County is going to be impacted by the development of a data center. You've already heard about the water, you've heard about the noise, you may hear about electricity, but what you won't hear that much about is the effect that a data center will have on the health of those living closest to it. And that's because there have been very few actual studies done on the long-term health effects of proximity to a data center. So let's get right to it. Data centers are air polluters. They run 24/7 on electricity that is overwhelmingly generated by fossil fuels, like natural gas and coal. More and more data centers are using generators on site rather than relying totally on an aging electrical grid. These generators give off pollutants like nitrous oxides, carbon monoxide, formaldehyde, and methane. A 2024 Caltech study estimated that by 2028, data centers could contribute to over 600,000 new asthma cases a year and potentially 1,300 premature deaths. Data centers require backup generators, usually powered to kick in when power goes down, and these backup generators run for usually very short periods of time during testing or during emergencies when they release fine particulate matter. These particles are 30 times smaller than the width of a human ear. And because they're smallest, they go deep into the lungs. They can cause respiratory infections, lung damage, and even death. These tiny particles can pass into the bloodstream, the brain, and other systems. They can alter DNA and even cause brain shrinkage, leading to dementia. These tiny particles are something that they call non-threshold pollutants. And this means that there is absolutely no safe level of exposure, even for short periods of time. If you remember nothing else from what I'm presenting tonight, remember this. The long-term health risks of proximity to a data center have yet to be determined. I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you.
So good evening. My name is Jeff Barstow. I'm a commissioner-elect for District 4 here in Marion County. I attended today's meeting about the data centers in Marion County because there's been some concerns dealing with the water, the electric, the noise, which seems to be concerns to everybody. And I think we need to come and attend these type of events to learn and educate ourselves more about this so we can address those situations and concerns later on as they come about.
Water dominated the discussion tonight. Speakers were talking about Marion County's aquifer and the springs, that were already under significant pressure. And, it questioned whether the county should allow another large industrial user before understanding exactly how much water that the proposed facility would require to operate. One of the strongest presentations came from a Silver Springs boat captain, Sebastian Dato, who described what he actually was seeing on the river. And his comment was that the river was in huge trouble. The aquifer was in huge trouble. He describes a situation where he has a wedding party and they couldn't even dock where they're supposed to dock because there was no water there. His message was very, very simple. And it was that whatever Marion County decides to do next, that the water supply has to be a key, major calculation. Of course, you have noise and health issues that have already been discussed, in this video and in this presentation. But the main takeaway from that is they are hugely detrimental to everything living there, plant life, animals, and humans in that area where the data center would be. Data centers can also represent billions of dollars in private investment. However, during the meeting, there were a lot of questions that were asked whether a facility could bring major tax revenue, thousands of construction jobs, several hundred permanent high-paying jobs. You know, one person was saying, what if they had 2,200 construction jobs, 200 or 300 full-time jobs, paying $80,000 to $100,000 a year? However, those are legitimate questions, but you know, with these data centers, once they've been constructed, it doesn't really take much of a manpower to operate it and maintain it and run it. Of course, there's the tax incentives. What kind of tax incentives are given? You know, who's going to pay for the roads, the electrical infrastructure, and other public costs? What happens if the economic benefit turns out to be far more, let's say, far smaller than what was originally promised? And of course, you have WEC, the World Equestrian Center. You have international show jumping there. You've got multi-million dollars, $7, $8, $9, $10 million horses, breeding farms, racing farms, show jumping farms. Everything in Marion County is affected by the horse industry. Absolutely everything. And that to me is where this becomes a horse money daily story. Marion County isn't simply vacant industrial land waiting for development. Its identity and enormous equestrian economy depends on farms, open spaces, water, property values, and the quality of life. The World Equestrian Center has helped make Ocala a true international destination. People have invested extraordinary amounts of money here in farms, businesses, and horses. So before approving another billion-dollar industry, Marion County has to ask, could the new investment damage the investment that's already here? What if you owned a farm or a home for 20 years and suddenly a massive industrial facility is proposed nearby, even before measurable effects can occur? For Marion County, the question matters enormously because this is a community where the land itself is part of the economy. So the real question is whether Marion County fully understands what it's agreeing to before the first shovel goes into the ground. What does the county gain? What does it risk? And the most important for this community is how do we protect the water, the horse industry? Because that's really what makes Ocala at this point.
Hey there, everybody. This is Brian. I'm so happy that we had such a great turnout tonight. It was our first meeting. The panel was great. The audience asked wonderful questions. Everybody's voice was heard tonight, and I'm so happy that this meeting went so well. It's the first of many more to come. Stay tuned. Everybody's going to be informed.